All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Abstentions? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes, please.
Boom.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Abstentions? Motion carried. All right, item 4 is a consent to vote on the financial statement. Ted, you want to walk us through it?
Yeah, so I mean, you should have the statement. The financial committee reviewed it on Monday. We did talk about kind of what our role is in this process. We all kind of determined that it's not the role of the finance committee to approve the statements, but just to receive and file them and to provide guidance on them. It's more this body's role to approve the statement. So we just want to make sure that it's clear, it's thorough, it has the proper information in it, things of that nature. So, for example, there were some credit card charges that were a bit ambiguous on the statement that, made out to Amazon, right? Didn't know exactly what that was. And so the committee's guidance was to provide a little more specificity around things like that. So that's more of the role of the committee that will be going forward, just to kind of receive and file and then provide any red flags, any concerns, and just guidance on the statement. That's what we did.
Any questions for Ted?
Move approval.
Second. Second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item 5 is a report and vote on the contract. So
We just have one expense for you this month. It's from Dick and Davis Browns for legal fees. A little over $9,000. Most of this had to do with dealing with personnel matters, but also some water trails, handbook review, looking at the policy and procedures manual. Those are the main items that were on this, as well as just our general services for the month. So it's before you for your approval.
Good month for Davis Brown. We'll move it.
Motion by Gallagher. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Weaver. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstention. Motion carried. Item 6, report and vote on the water trails line of credit. Matt, you want to walk us through?
Yep, thank you, Bob. Okay, so this is a follow-up to a couple prior opportunities to consider this item okay, Len is here. Len had some questions. I think others also had some questions during our last meeting. And so over the course of time since we last got together, I know, Scott, you've had an opportunity to take a look at and provide a memo regarding the line of credit and whether or not there's any other collateral that may be impacted by that. I also know that the folks with Icon, and I know we've got Hannah and others here that have worked through questions, Len, that you and perhaps others have provided. All of those materials are linked. So thank you to the folks here at the MPO for putting all these links together, but there is quite a bit of information in there. And I think if I can just say, it seemed to me one of the primary issues related to the line of credit and the specific, I'll say, boilerplate language that was in that agreement and whether or not it impacted other assets of the MPO. So maybe Scott, my read of your opinion was that it was not concerning, that it would not impact any other assets of the MPO, but I defer to you, given that you were asked to provide the opinion, if you could share with the group what your conclusion was.
Sure, and I think you said it exactly right, Councilman Kenny. I reviewed the agreements, and then in a belt and suspenders approach, I had one of our very bright young lawyers also reviewed them and take a look and just make sure we were confirming each other. But our conclusion is that set forth in that memo to Dylan, the 26th, that the collateral is limited to what is in that project account. That is the only thing that this impacts. And again, that was opinion. And one thing I think is helpful is that the banker's trust language, a lot of it is boilerplate. And sadly, we won't sign these agreements. Most of them probably haven't even read them, related to the boilerplate from a bank, because they have lots of requirements that they have with the state and federal regulators. And so we reviewed those, and one thing I thought was very helpful was that Dylan corresponded with in-house counsel at Bankers Trust. And Bankers Trust had confirmed that, our view that the collateral was limited to the project account. And they confirmed that in writing. And so if there was ever a future problem, we would be able to utilize that essential writing as an admission from Bankers Trust that their intention was that the collateral, only collateral was the project account.
So thank you, Scott. And then also there is a link in here about the project bank account agreement. I know there's some concerns about whether or not it's a joint account. In my review of that, it is a scanned image that I pulled up. It shows it connected to the internet apparently, but when I looked at it yesterday, it didn't have the MPO, or I'm sorry, it didn't have an icon on there. So, and just as background, obviously I wasn't involved when this water trails item came before the MPO long before I was here. But we're at a point now where on behalf of ICON, of course, I serve on the ICON board along with Joe and others. We're at a point on ICON trying to figure out, we got to keep this project moving forward in terms of we've got, dirt being moved, rocks being delivered, and agreements and obligations and pledges that are out there. And so, there's a lot of information here. If there's any other questions, of course, we've got members of ICON here that can answer. That's kind of the opening remarks, if you will.
All right, thank you, Matt. Any questions or discussion? Joe?
Just a real quick discussion point, and I shared this with Tom and Mayor Anwig. So my understanding, the line of credit isn't probably going to be for Scott or Harriet, that it would probably happen later down the road for Prospect or Birdland, possible.
I mean, this is Jackie Pullen with ICON.
Yep.
The line of credit is specific to the Scott project. The whole Bankers Trust relationship is to the Scott project.
Okay.
It is for Peatman Valley in those cash flows. So our private pledges go out for 5 years. Some of those come in as late as 27.
Right.
28. So at those peaks and valleys, we will use some of that line of credit at the end of a given month to make sure we keep all of the construction costs paid while we wait for those additional funding, those additional pledges that might be out there for the next 2 or 3 years.
So don't you think that 27 and 28, we better be working on Prospect and Birdland that Scott should be completed? So that's the only reason I say that. And just to follow up with, and I'm fine with the line of credit, obviously, I'm very supportive of it. But my thoughts were, and we're applying for a grant, the city of Des Moines, for Birdland. And so at that point in time, maybe it'll be time for the MPO to step back from any type of the levy. And either the city would be able to do it for the Birdland portion of it, or, I talked to Supervisor Hawks, said maybe the county would just step in and do the next level of it. And then that just takes MPO out of play. And so that's the only reason. I mean, for now, we're already on board, we're moving forward. But as we go through each of the projects, we should look and see some different entities that can do the letting and move forward with that. It might be a lot less complicated and a lot less bills for Davis Bacon Law Firm.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Joe. This
Or
is
whatever, Davis Brown.
the obligation for the build grant, and the reason for this line of credit is just for the Scott area project. We have other plans for Prospect and Birdland. We must start those by 2027, which is after the completion. of this
Okay.
project.
All right, okay.
And Councilman Gatto, I guess what I appreciate the question, and what obviously the item that's on the agenda today is this line of credit item. If and when or how it's most appropriate to distance ICON from MPO without interfering with, the ability to complete, because those other projects are also tied to the build grant.
Exactly.
Right? We don't want to disrupt. I know nobody wants to disrupt.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
If it's convenient for another entity to step in, whether it be the city or the county, I would say those are probably going to be the other two. Then we would take a look at that and move forward with that.
I mean, we're engaged now.
Right, I mean, it's not like Bob Rice, hopefully he doesn't retire in any time before this project.
It's good to have a couple different set of eyes on it anyway. probably,
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think that's everyone's intention.
Okay. So, I mean, unless there's some other questions, I mean, I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
May I just one issue real quick?
Sure.
So, in the documents, I believe you all got it Thursday or Friday, amended restated sub-agreement for, there were two minor but substantive revisions that I made since you received that document. The only two changes are in witness whereof paragraph. I think it still said 2022, so I changed that to 2023. And then on the signature page, it still said Central Iowa Water Trails. That was mistaken, so now it says Iowa Conflict Water Trail. Those are the only two substantive changes, but it's the same. With those two changes, it's the same document that you received last week.
Okay.
The date.
I do have,
All right, Lynn.
there's always, you can't imagine I'm going to get by without saying something.
Sorry,
That's all right. I've done my due diligence to bring our concerns forward to staff leading this committee. The original grant documents, agreement, and sub-agreements were all written to protect all parties involved in Water Trails project. Each of you will form your own opinion, but I still have concerns about the line of credit documents and the responses I received. While our attorney expressed his opinion on what constitutes collateral according to documents, the language he claims does not apply in this situation was not removed from any of the line of credit documents. There was an excerpt from an email presented as coming from Bankers Trust legal staff. We don't know what question was posed, nor do we know the full extent of the response or who provided the response. Why did Bankers Trust attorney, why didn't the Bankers Trust attorney provide a formal written response to the MPO concerning collateral and the power of attorney referred to in the line of credit documents, or offer removed language in the documents that is deemed irrelevant to this line of credit? The two responses we received to my many questions were, in my opinion, unprofessional, informed, and provide incomplete, conflicting information. The email responses with statements in red font. I do not know who provided these responses. It was Icon staff, MPO staff, an attorney from Icon, Bankers Trust, or the MPO, or some combination of the aforementioned, as no name or signature is attached to the statements. The agenda item notes the need for line of credit stems from requirement by the Iowa Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration in guarantee enough funds are in hand to cover the bid estimate and ensure the project's completion. This conflicts with the red text inserted by someone stating the purpose of the line of credit is to address gaps in cash flow, not gaps in funding. This confusion in writing in the same packet confirms the ongoing concern that staff, legal, and this committee do not have one single line of facts or understanding for the project. This lack of detail and seriousness in responding to questions leaves me without confidence in our legal counsel and staff to advise this committee on a project with potential to damage the MPO on our future grant opportunities. We did learn that the MPO cannot open another bank account with Bankers Trust for the life of the MPO's involvement in water trails, as it appears it would be subject to the collateral provisions. The proposed changes sub-agreement for appear to address the current issues of funds can be documented and agreed to by all parties. The legal consult with Polk County Conservation and the third-party beneficiaries mentioned sub-agreement for consisting of Federal Highway Administration, the Iowa DOT, and the city of Moines concerning the proposed changes, and did they accept them? We have never been presented with confirmation of exact dollars on hand, anticipated pledges, contingencies, and exact plans for any shortfalls. Businesses and our member governments do not operate this way and would not make significant financial decisions without complete information. Icon still did not secure the line of credit within the time frame required, as I understand it. The process for pre-approval for a loan is not the same as a signed and secured line of credit. Reviewing line of credit documents for Baker Trust, nothing has changed, but written in amended sub-agreement 4, it says, additionally, Icon will provide proof that the line of credit will remain available to the MPO until the final audit is completed and the project is closed out, or the earlier termination of sub-agreement number 2. Then it says the line of credit may be closed by Icon after final payment of the construction of the project is made by MPO to its general contractor, or the earlier termination of sub-agreement 2. The two statements could contradict each other, as the final audit and project closing may not be the same date as the final payment is made to the general contractor. This loophole probably should be addressed. The fifth paragraph in sub-agreement 4, whereas the current construction cost of the project is estimated to be 48 million, and Icon will secure all funds in excess of 32,550,000 in grant funds. This leaves an estimated $15,450,000 to be secured by Icon for the MPO's portion of the Baldwin Water Trails project, which gets to Joe's piece about at some point we step away. Sub-agreement 4, item 4, line of credit. Icon will obtain a line of credit that together totals an amount equal to 110% of the engineer's final estimate of cost less federal and state funding secured. Wouldn't that now be 16,995,000 based on the fifth paragraph estimate of 48 million and not the 15 million requested on the line of credit documents? We support the Water Trails project, and I have an understanding of the commitments we have entered, and I recognize this project must succeed. However, I'm disappointed that we received responses from unnamed sources and continue to make major decisions based on informal, incomplete, unsigned information from legal counsel, despite being asked on the record for a full and formal legal opinion. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And I can't wait to get this item behind us.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, item 7 then is report and vote on the MPO CERPA Planning Services Agreement. Zach.
Thank you. This is the agreement that we look at each year. The MPO has been staff services CERPA since the early 1990s. Essentially, we do very similar activities for CERPA to do for the MPO, things such as allocating SDBG funds. We develop their annual LRTP or their 4-year LRTP. And then just do other transportation related data collection and analysis as needed for CERPA. So all very transportation focused on the CERPA side. This agreement is required to be reviewed annually. The last time we made any changes to this was back in 2019. Based on some comments we received from Iowa DOT, they wanted us to start having the MPO look at this agreement annually. So that's why we're bringing it before you today. The only change that staff is recommending in this document, read the document still needs to be made, is that there is language in there that refers to the FAST Act, which is the previous transportation bill. And so we're recommending that we keep the document the same, other than changing the FAST Act to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So inserting that change is the only recommendation we're making as far as changes to the document as you see it before you today. On the next slide, we got a little bit of information here is kind of what the CERPA contract means to us from a fiscal standpoint. It makes up about 3.5% of the MPO's budget, which is approximately $134,000. We recommend approval, staff recommends approval of this change or of this agreement with the noted changes on the FAST Act to the Infrastructure and Jobs Act.
Move. Second.
Motion by Hawkinsmith, second by Gatto. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. Motion carries. Item A is report and vote on the fiscal year 24 investment policy.
This is another item that we bring before this group each year for review and approval. We have an investment policy in place. The purpose of this is just to safeguard our investment of public funds by the MPO. We're very conservative with the way we invest our funds. We basically have 3 different accounts for the MPO. One of them is a checking account with First National Bank. We also have a money market account also with First National Bank. And then most of our funds are in the iPay account with Wells Fargo, as it gets a much better interest rate than the money market account. We presented this investment policy to the Finance Subcommittee on June 5th. They reviewed it. They didn't have any recommended changes. So we're based on their recommendation, we have it before you for your approval today. We'd be happy to take any questions you have regarding investment policy. Ted, I don't know if you have anything.
Oh, yeah, the committee was fine with it, there's no changes, so.
Move approval.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, motion carries. Item 9, report and vote on our self-certification.
This is something that the MPO is required to do each year. Typically, we put this document into our annual tip. It's a statement that shows up in there that basically outlines that we are aware of all the federal requirements that the MPO must follow and that we are following them. And that's what that self-certification does. Just a statement saying that we're doing that. On the screen there before you can see some of the various different federal rules and regulations that are included in that document. We also included what that document looks like. It's in your agenda packet. But just to give you an idea of the kind of things, we have to, confirm that we understand the 3C planning process, continuing, comprehensive, and cooperative process for planning the transportation system. Other things include the Clean Air Act, Title VI, and civil rights, which we review probably every couple of years. We'll bring that before the board every couple of years to have you approve our current Title VI, and we submit that on to the DOT Federal Highway. Older Americans Act, disadvantaged minority business enterprises. From time to time, we'll get a grant where it's required of us to make sure that we're engaging disadvantaged business enterprises in that work. Americans with Disabilities Act, that's kind of hits on accessibility issues when we're doing public input processes and stuff. We need to make sure that we're making sure the locations we're having those meetings are accessible and things of that nature. A fiscally constrained tip and long range plan. I think all of you are probably very familiar with that. And make sure that we're not, putting projects and money out there that we don't have to cover what we want to do as far as planning over the future years. And then also we cannot spend federal funds on lobbying. So when we take the TC trip, for example, those are expenses that we can't reimburse through the Iowa DOT. So again, a basic document that we approve every year within our tip. We were asked by the US DOT as part of our last review that we should probably start bringing this before you each year, not just embedded in the tip, but pulled out as a separate item. And so that's why we have it for you today. Following your approval, we will insert that document into our final tip and submit it to the Iowa DOT in July. I'm happy to take any questions you have on this item.
Thanks, Zach. Any questions on this item?
I'll move it.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, that motion carries. Item 10, report and vote on the fiscal year 24-27 tip.
Yes, just wanted to make you aware that we have prepared the draft tip for federal fiscal year 24-27. We will be submitting that to the Iowa DOT on June 15th, following approval by policy. We have asked the technical committee to take a look at the projects in the tip, just to make sure that all of them are programmed correctly and in the appropriate year. So your staffs are currently making that review. Any comments that we receive from them, along with comments that we get back from the DOT, will be incorporated into the final draft, which we'll submit to them in July. I would make one note on fiscal capacity. There's a table on the next slide here that shows that we have been able to accommodate everybody's requests as far as getting projects moved into federal fiscal year 2024. However, you can see that we do have a pretty low balance of $30,500 in that year. So just be aware that any future requests over the next year to move projects into 24 are going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to accommodate unless we were to remove other projects from that year. So just a heads up that if those requests come in, I'm not really anticipating that we're going to have any major requests, because I think we were able to get everybody accommodated in this draft tip. But just a heads up that those first 2 years, 24 and 25, are both pretty low on our fiscal capacity. We're not going to be able to make a lot of changes in those in the coming year. Just want to make you aware of that. Otherwise, for your approval, I'd be happy to take any questions you have on the draft tip.
For approval.
Second.
I don't have any questions. I want your comments, Zach. I have a bit more of an overall general question. So, and I should know this, but the long range transportation planning process is that starting where we at?
Yes, we're kind of at the beginning of that. We're basically kind of in the middle of kind of having staff review discussions about how we want to approach the next update. Where we're kind of landed right now is that we're looking at a pretty basic update to the plan. I think everybody was pretty happy with the last one, but we're kind of at the beginning of that process.
The reason I've asked the question, I didn't want to know the process, as far as major reconstruction projects. If it's a state highway, but it's in the city of Des Moines jurisdiction, frankly, in my supervisor district, does it have to be Des Moines that's the lead on it to get the long range transportation plan? Or do they, at what level does the state become engaged? What I'm talking about is Highway 163. Okay, Highway 163 from at least East 33rd to East 42nd is at best one of the most dangerous corridors in the metro. Connecting Pleasant Hill, Altoona, Prairie City, all those jurisdictions to the downtown metro. The road isn't wide enough, mirrors hit from trucks that go back and forth through there. It's the gateway to the state fairgrounds, millions of people travel it every year. It needs a total reconstruction plan. And I've asked in the past, when I was former member of the MPO, the Department of Transportation to run some numbers, the former district engineer to run some numbers on reconstruction. They were fairly significant, as you'd expect, as a lot of utilities got to be moved there. But I just thought I want to start that discussion at some point, so that's the place it would go. But what jurisdiction does state DOT have, being that it is a state highway?
They would have, they would definitely have jurisdiction in it, so we would probably need to circle around with the DOT, have discussions with them. It's possible that in the long range plan, it would probably show up as a joint project, so we would have multiple jurisdictions on there since it does cross through multiple jurisdictions. But it would probably ultimately show up as an Iowa DOT project with joint.
Right, and I don't even know if it's priority for Des Moines.
Well, and I haven't been able to, I mean.
It is for us.
Yeah,
On the east end.
I haven't been able to get it into the long-term budget plan for at least 5 years out. I still have to accomplish that task.
Okay.
But it's gonna be at least 5 years, but
Well, yeah,
we do need to have the.
But I was asking more about the process, Zach.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and we are going to solicit projects for the long range plan in the fall, probably.
Okay,
And so at that point, we would just look for somebody to submit that project,
Okay.
whether it's the DOT or Des Moines or Polk County. Somebody can submit it and get it in the plan, and that way it's in there.
okay,
So we just need to work together with,
Okay.
with city and
Okay.
county and then
and the state.
in the state. Is Andy
Yep.
online?
I am, yep. Yeah, I've been listening, and
You heard anything about this before, Andy?
I have, but it's been a while. I've heard, we have some concerns out there, and we're working with Pleasant Hill on a few intersection things, but that's kind of all we've done there. I know we replaced the bridges there kind of right before you get into Des Moines or redeck them. But yeah, I definitely can keep it, on our back burner, and as we need to do resurfacing and things like that, that's when it would get into maybe a joint project, and we could put in, we were going to resurface and work on, other things that we might need to.
Well, the mayor and Joe and I will probably try to work with you on it, coming into the fall.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you, appreciate it.
And if you include Pleasant Hill in that process, it's one of the things we have talked about back and forth is a lot of East Des Moines residents are actually trying to travel that 4-lane road with no sidewalks. I mean, they're walking on the shoulder, trying to get.
We've heard that.
Oh, the light poles sit about that far off the curb.
I mean, in the winter, when that snow piled up, they're actually in a lane of traffic.
If you drive it very often, you'll see how dicey
Yeah.
it is.
So Zach, I don't know if there's other grant opportunities even for the trail sidewalk kinds of things that could be applied to that bridge project. So we can get the pedestrians off of that 4-lane road.
Well, that's one of our specific asks from the neighbors at that neighborhood group that we have. Tom and I have been asked to try to get that accomplished.
Right.
And we're,
The thing that jumps to my mind is, we're gonna talk about this a little bit later,
Yeah.
but the comprehensive safety action plan, this seems like a corridor that probably needs to be highlighted, in that and could potentially benefit from those implementations.
right, that's,
Clearly it's a regional upgrade, but. You know, we got the county, we got the east end, northeast 23rd on our front burner right now. We're trying to get the funds put together to finish that project, so.
Yeah.
But that probably be next.
Thank you.
Right, thanks. Any further discussion? We do have a motion in a second. I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, motion carries. Item 11 is report and vote on the charging and fueling infrastructure discretionary grant program. Carl.
Great, thank you. So here to update you on the charging and fueling infrastructure sector grant that the MPO is coordinating for the region. So we have heard back from all of our member communities and have a list of all who are willing to participate this year. There were other community members that would have liked to participate, although given the very quick time turnaround that we were given for this year, they'll likely join in future years. So with that, there is an online map that has all the locations highlighted for you, as well as the type of location that it will be going in or charging. Most of our charging, all of our ask this year is for charging infrastructure and level 2. So level 2 is primarily that top off slower rate of charging, charge your car up to full in about 6 hours. The applications are due next week, so we're just finishing up all of our asks for that. In total, it's going to be about a $4 million application, and 20% will fall on a number of communities. And over the entire life of the program, it's $2.5 billion over the next 5 years. So this is just the first year of 5 that will be going after dollars, and after this one wraps up, we'll begin planning for the next stages. So with that, looking for approval.
Is Allison still the lead on this project?
Well, she is taking a position with Polk County, so she's passed it off to Carl.
Was she moved?
No, she's put in her notice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I agree, I actually was at a board meeting the other day, that just kind of quick update for our board as to where the charging station piece was at.
Yep.
Because she's been working on it.
She is technically still employed at the MPO, but she has taken her leave basically for the rest of the month.
All right.
So she just using up her vacation time that she had, and then.
Correct.
So you're gonna lead on it now then?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, David's helping me out with the certain members as well.
Okay, perfect.
So Carl, as I understand it too, when we're gonna get this in, but if we don't get a full allocation, then we're gonna have to come up with a process to how to allocate these dollars among the applicants that did this, correct?
I'm sorry.
Well, we have all these applicants, but we don't get a full award for what's been applied for, right? We'll have to come up with a process to allocate that among the applicants.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think essentially what we'll have to do is adjust it down in the language that we had them submit for their resolutions they supplied to us. It does state that it makes a note of that so that there's an understanding that if we don't get the full ask, the remainder will have to be made up by the local committee or the local community, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So is there a scoring type deal that we're gonna go off of if we don't, I mean, if we don't get the full allocation, how are we going to say who gets what? Is there?
My understanding
Something?
My understanding is that, each community has submitted the number of stations that they want. And there's an estimated cost for each community. And if we get the full ask, they will get the full amount that they asked for the charge that they're asking for. If we don't get the full amount, which I think if we get awarded, we'll get awarded the full amount. I don't think we'll get a partial award.
Okay.
Okay.
In my experience, you usually get your
Yeah,
full
you
award, you don't. All right. But if that were to happen for some reason, then the amount of federal dollars would just be reduced proportionally for each project.
Okay.
And then the local community would have to come up with that difference. And that's what the resolutions stated. So they're aware that that's what would happen.
The only question I have, Zach, is based on the locations that the communities have identified in their jurisdiction. I'm sure that we probably coordinated through this body as to not be redundant as far as an example where the corporate boundaries line up in each community, you wouldn't want them right across the corporate boundary from another based on You know, just geographically where you want them spread out through the region.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yep.
That's being coordinated at some level?
Yes, absolutely. So in the first year, we were mainly supporting those with the lack of charging in the area at this time. That probably won't happen, but we also have an EV plan that will be more closely followed to and adhered to in the future.
Sorry, great. All right, thanks.
All right, we have a motion, is there a motion on it?
Is it a voting item?
Yeah.
Move.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All fair say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Abstentions, carried. All right, thanks, Carl. Item 12, report and vote on the Water Trails Bill Grant Payment Approvals Act.
So the partial payment application number 6 is before you for your approval today. The document is on the table. I do apologize because of the way the tech committee fell on the 1st this month. The exec committee is actually sooner in the month than we would typically see. So the schedule that they have for supplying these pay apps to us got thrown off a little bit. I really appreciate Polk County getting this looked at and getting it to us today. But it is a little rushed, I understand. So I apologize that you're just seeing this morning. We just received this morning as well. The pay application has been reviewed by Polk County and they concurred with the amount on this pay app, which is a little over $1.3 million. I believe I have some information on the next slide there. Governor, you'll advance it for me. As far as work that's been completed for this pay app over the last month, they've been grading the south bank. Have been moving a lot of cubic yards of material. If you see down there, there's a lot of changes happening. 12,000 cubic yards have been moved. So a lot of stuff, a lot of work happening. They have also constructed a causeway out into the water, so it's exciting to see them finally getting out into the water. This causeway is to remove an old railroad footing that's out there currently. And they're continuing to haul rock into the stockpiles. What they're looking at doing in the coming weeks is to start modifying the actual face of the dam. They're going to start on the north side and work that way and then switch over to the south side from there. The water levels have been high, which I know has been frustrating for them because they just can't get as much work done as they want to. I imagine as we move into the summer, we're going to see those water levels go down and they'll start really moving on in water work. I believe I have one more slide. Of this pay application, about 1.1, a little over $1.1 million of it is immediately reimbursable expenses. The other remaining 211,000 is for stored materials. I think we mentioned before, we can't reimburse for materials that are not going into the project immediately. So we cannot reimburse for those stored materials until they actually are used on the project. I think that was my last slide, but go ahead and advance one more. Yeah, so this is again, typically we have this on for your approval. I spoke with Bob before the meeting, if there would be a more comfort in holding off and just waiting for policy next week, so you have time to actually look at this. That is also an option on the table. I would leave it up to this committee to decide how they want to approach this this approval today. But it has been reviewed by Polk County as of this morning.
Go ahead and move it.
Second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Abstentions. All right, that carries. And we will still have this on, for final approval for the full policy committee next week, of course. All right, item 13 is a report on the 2023 pavement condition report, Andrew.
Yes, thank you. So every 2 years, MPO staff takes the previously collected pavement data from DOT and updates our pavement condition report. The information presented comes from 2021. We are currently in a pavement collection cycle right now. So next year we'll have updated 2023 information to show you. So just a quick reminder, point data is collected from these vans that drive all over the metro area that's collecting the pavement data, gets converted to a PCI score, pavement condition index. That is what we use to analyze road segments here in the metro. And just as also as a reminder, we've been doing this since 2013. So in previous years, we had been creating these reports in a paper format to make the data more accessible. We've transitioned that to an online format on the Z for putting this dashboard together. But on the screen before you can see when you go to that link that was included in the packet, what that report will look like. We see regional comparison across different time periods for the different cities and their pavement conditions. We also track these metrics and performance of our mobilizing tomorrow targets. And then we also have a map that you can zoom into different cities and show their different PCIs and different payments. That is updated. So bringing it back to mobilizing tomorrow, we look at average pavement condition index as well as the percentage of pavements for worst condition. So over time, we have a target for 5 years of maintaining an average PCI of 65. We're maintaining that. However, we're kind of trending down this last cycle. We went from 67 to 66 average PCI. In percentage of pavements of for worst condition, we're trending upwards, which isn't good. We were 3% in 2013, and we're now 12% in 2021. A little hard to read here, just shows you the different pavement classifications in the different communities. No surprise that communities with newer pavements generally have pavements rated excellent and very good condition versus more older pavements communities. So again, showing this data in a graphical format, you can see that the average PCI is 66, but it has ebbed and flowed over time. We're currently in a trajectory downward cycle. We also showing the different pavements and how they're classified across the metro in excellent, good, very poor, or very poor conditions. Showing that percentage pavement in poor worse conditions, we're trending upwards quite a bit. Since 2015, we've seen quite a big jump in the percentage of pavements that are classified to poor worse condition. But to illustrate, and on this slide, just to illustrate that not all roads are being treated the same, staff broke out the average PCI by federal functional class. So from 2013 to 2015, the average PCI across the metro stayed the same. However, the higher classified roads, so your roads that are arterials or collectors, all of their PCIs were trending down, while your local roads PCI was trending up. That's very traditional pavement management strategies, that worst to first classification. And so then over time, we've seen all of our pavements go down and they go up. And most recently, as communities have moved towards the pavement management strategies, we're seeing that higher classified roads actually saw their PCI go up while the overall PCI goes down. And that makes sense. All of the higher classified roads, your arterials, your collectors, they're more heavily traveled, they have faster speeds, and they generally serve your commercial industrial corridors. So as communities have changed how you all treat your pavement management strategies, we're seeing that bear out in the data as those higher travel roads are being categorized and classified differently. So we are in a current collection cycle now for 2023. It'll be interesting to see how that data progresses and whether there are any changes to that or not. And we'll be updating our Mobilizing Tomorrow plan. Zachary mentioned we'll be doing that. We'll be bringing this data into that as well. So with that, happy to take any questions anyone may have.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Any questions? All right, thank you. Item 14, report on the comprehensive safety action plan, RFP update. Zach.
Thank you. Just wanted to give you a quick update on where we're at with the comprehensive safety action plan RFP. We had 3 RFP responses submitted to us. One being from FHU as the lead with Fears and Peers and the Group Creative Services as their subs. SRF also submitted with all the planning design and Snyder and Associates as their sub. And then Tool Design submitted with HR Green, Confluence, and HDR Engineering. We feel like these are all really good qualified firms to do this. We are going to go through an interview process where we're going to interview each one of them. Mayor Anderwick has done a selection committee or has announced a selection committee, and all of them have agreed to serve. So we appreciate you all taking the time to serve on that committee. We have Mark Holm from Anthony, Marquita Oliver from Bondurant, Stephanie Riva from Norwalk, John Davis from the City of Des Moines, Eric Peterson from the City of West Des Moines, Luis Montoya from DART, and Jeremy Lewis from the Street Collective. We felt like this was a really good cross section of policy makers as well as engineers and planners to help make a decision on who the best firm to go with is for this plan. Next slide, please. As far as next steps go, we will have the selection committee review and score the RFP responses. There was a matrix that was included in the RFP for them to do that. So they'll be doing that over the coming weeks, and they will submit those scores to staff. We're working currently to schedule the interviews. We're looking at dates in mid to late June and also early July, trying to find time that works for the majority of the selection committee to meet and hear those presentations. We are going to do those presentations virtually, just to try to make it more accessible to both the selection committee and the consultant teams who are interviewing. Once the interviews are conducted, the selection committee will score those again based on a matrix that was included in the RFP. And then we'll bring back the scores and the recommendation from the selection committee to executive policy at their August meetings. Hopefully be able to agree on a consultant at that time. Once we do, once the policy committee does approve the consultant, we will enter into contract negotiations with that consultant. I would note that we're still in the process of working on the grant agreement with USDOT. I've been following up with them. We sent a draft to them probably about, I want to say we're probably at 6 to almost maybe 8 weeks ago that we submitted that draft to them. So they're currently reviewing that. I know that our Iowa DOT rep at the Federal Highway did have a meeting yesterday afternoon. So I'm waiting to hear back from him on if they have any comments on what that draft agreement, where it's at, and what kind of changes we still need to make to it. We can't really move forward until that agreement is in place. However, we did feel like going ahead and getting a consultant on board would help us be quicker in the process once that grant agreement is finalized. And Federal Highway is fine with us doing that. So if we do go ahead and approve a consultant prior to that grant agreement being finalized, we have to make sure that they don't do any work until we give them the thumbs up to start on the project. That's where we're at with the comprehensive safety action plan. I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have. Questions?
I think we used tool, didn't we? There.
Yes.
I think that's what we used.
All right, thanks, Zach. Item 15, report on upcoming events. Z. Did you know you were doing the C?
Yep, so some upcoming events we've compiled for you. Some to highlight, I think next week we have the Governor's Highway Traffic Safety Conference. That's pretty good, hosted by the GTSB. And then the Iowa Counties Engineering Association will be meeting next month. And in October, in the fall, there will be a safe route sequence. So upcoming events are available in your agenda package if you register for the conference.
Any questions? All right, thanks. Item 16 to be, or excuse me, item 16, need a vote, motion and second to approve the agenda for.
Move. Second.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, that carries. Other action, non-action items, I'd just note first before I turn it over to anybody else. I've asked for the executive director search committee to meet. We're going to have our initial meeting next Thursday before this policy committee at 3 p.m. So I know many of you are on that. I know I talked to a couple of you about it, but I'm gonna have Tracy get a calendar invite to everybody to schedule that initial meeting next Thursday at 3 p.m. So, anybody else have anything for the good of the order today?
Just one real quick thing is we mentioned earlier, Allison Van Pelt, who's been with the MPO for a number of years now, has decided to move on to other opportunities. We just want to wish her the best of luck. We really appreciate all the work that she has done for us over the past years. She's been an excellent member of our team, and we're going to greatly miss her, but she's still going to be around doing good work. So we're excited for her. She's not here today, but we just want to say thank you for done for the MPO. Absolutely. Thank you, Zach.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? If not, we are adjourned. Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day.
See you guys.
Yeah.